The Swallows to Capistrano. Winter. The DeMar DeRozan, Kawhi Leonard trade left many fans shocked and disappointed. But the trade was made on improving the on-court aspect of the team, Doug Smith says. Rick Madanick, Toronto Star, The Weekend Mail. 3 things that always come back. Yeah, we're getting a step or 2 closer to normal around here. Still more than a few steps to go on the journey, but knocking off the weekend mailbag now seems quite doable. So, we'll plan to keep it for Sunday mornings the rest of the summer and see how we do. Article continued. Bellerwenjoy. Q. Hi Doug. It is great to see the old Doug back in full swing. Just finished reading your column on Carnoustie and am surprised I can write at this moment. I am laughing so hard. That Dramboe can sure hit its mark, can't it? Must have been hell trying to find the ball that wasn't. Great to have you back, Doug. Boba, dear old dad used to have a Dramboe or 6, which is where I acquired my since lost taste. Article continued. Bellerwand. What I learned that day was to hit the middle ball. Or try to. Q. A belated welcome back from a cross-country traveler, halfway through a 12,000 kilometers highway odyssey sparked by a question, if not now, when? Perhaps Masai asked the same before pulling the trigger. Catching up with the blog required a bit of time and consistent Wi-Fi, which coincided with the trade, to be forever known as the trade in my world. Even the spouse of the house, an occasional fly-in participant on this trip, whose knowledge of an interest in basketball is minimal, sent me a message of condolence. I responded by sending her your truly wonderful meditation on the normality of DeMar DeRozan. The accompanying photo was perfect. It is going to be at least as interesting to follow San Antonio this season as it is Toronto. I wonder how Lowry will react professionally, one assumes. I wonder how the startlingly durable DeMar will react when Popovich tells him to take a night off, and what kind of shooter Pirtle can become in Spurs school. I can't wait for the first Pistons-Raptors matchup. One of my visits in the Annapolis Valley was to a Kentucky-born friend who was as appalled by KC's firing as me. It is certainly fun to have you around to report on a season of such import. A modest Newfoundland solution to your sodium problem should be arriving shortly via Canada Post, care of the Star. It's good to be back in blog land. James 8, Victoria, in another month or so. That sounds like a haluva trip. Would like to take it one summer myself. And thanks, very much. I will find a way to make a rare appearance at Mother Star as soon as I can. Q. First, I want to welcome you back. Your blog has been sorely missed by myself, and I'm sure all your irregulars. It's just nice to be able to look at the variety of questions and read your thoughts. Hope your health continues to improve quickly. On to the question. One of the things about the Kawhi Leonard trade that puzzles me, and that I don't see an answer for yet, it is the fact that the medicals are done after the trade is completed. This strikes me as kind of bizarre, and I think this was an issue for the Raptors a few years ago, no? Had Kawhi failed his medical, especially given his history, I can't imagine how challenging it would have been for Masai and DeMar to patch things up. Is there no way the Raptors could have done a medical prior to the trade? The second thing that puzzles me is that Masai seemingly did not talk to Kawhi or his handlers prior to making the trade. I know about the tampering rules, but I would have thought that Masai could have asked San Antonio for permission, and I would think given the circumstances that would have been allowed. Happens in other leagues, NHL for sure. Any idea why this didn't? Welcome back again, MSGA. It's simply the rules of the game and transactions in the NBA that they couldn't look at medicals until the trade was negotiated and met salary cap parameters. Now, that's not to say some deep back-channel conversations may or may not have happened, but even they, against the rules, wouldn't have included any intensive examination. And, yeah, the Raptors may have had concerns once the exams were concluded, and it would have been messy. would have perhaps been like a year ago when the Kyrie Irving Isaiah Thomas deal almost fell apart, if you recall. Just took a bit more time, a bit more negotiating, and it got done. The Raptors were involved in a trade that actually got rescinded on medical grounds even after it was agreed to. Was in February 2000, we all landed in San Francisco for All-Star Weekend in the Vince Carter coming out party to find out that a trade to send Alvin Williams to Boston was off after it was on. Q. What, in your pop, is the ultimate team sport? And why? Joe, Toronto. I suppose if the criteria is the greatest number of athletes doing their own jobs well so the team succeeds, you gotta think football, right? Not that I am any kind of knowledgeable football fan, but that's how it strikes me. I'd probably go basketball, soccer, hockey and baseball to round out an in-order top 5, but, again, that's only going by the criteria I laid out, and I'm sure there could be other ways to look at it. Q. Good morning, Doug. Your column in today's paper was absolutely beautiful. I have to ask, why is it a reporter cannot or should become attached to one who is a subject or point of topic? Like you, I have witnessed the maturing of DeMar over his years here in Toronto. Some of the best images of him in my mind are photos of him kissing his daughters just before the start of a game. And as you have said, seldom if ever was there an I, or me, or mine, relating to himself. Yes, he did use my team, and he is an enemy of mine, in reference to Lowry. Not only have they got him out of town, but one has to wonder what happens with the play of Lowry, Ibaka and the others. That is how close they appeared to be. All one can hope for is somewhere Masai has a rabbit hiding up his sleeve, because at this point the man has lost a lot of respect with fans, me included. Boba, I don't think a reporter or a columnist can't necessarily become attached, as long as it's not too much and doesn't get in the way of objective coverage, and I don't think I crossed any lines in the 9 seasons covering DeMar basically every day. Q. Hi Doug, glad to have you back. I'm having concerns regarding Kyle Lowry and how his personality without DeMar DeRozan around may cause issues for the Raptors. Is there anyone else still on the Raptors he will listen to, or should Masai start looking for another trading partner? Thanks Charlie. Kyle's a bit of a contrarian, sure, but he's also a competitor and wants to win and will do what's necessary to make that happen. Until we get a realistic look at the new mesh of personalities, I don't think anyone should get too worked up at all. Q. Although I still feel very sad about the trade, I feel equally upset that DeMar is not honoring his African commitment. I can imagine some African kids feeling very upset if they had dreamed of seeing, meeting and maybe practicing alongside DeMar. I think it's a rather bad look given the economic disparity, and I wish he'd taken the high road. More importantly, I am so glad you're back. Vancouver Beva, thanks very much. I agree with you. I think there will be fans in Africa who are disappointed that he pulled out, and, all things being equal, he probably still should have gone after committing. I don't think there will be anything pressing in the week he's away that couldn't be taken care of in the 6 weeks or so before training camp starts. Q. Hi Doug. Best wishes for your continued health. My question is about DeMar DeRozan's apparent belief he was lied to. Does your reporting suggest that's true, or not? And, whether or not it's true, does it matter? My own view would be that a classy ownership group shouldn't be lying to players. Of course it's possible that they made such a commitment in good faith and later changed their minds, but in that case you would hope there would have been a genuine effort made to explain that to DeRozan. Perhaps there was, and he's simply not buying it. I can't say I'd blame him. But is that kind of deception simply par for the course in pro sports? Thanks for your insight. Marka, I don't think anyone knowingly lied to anyone. I think there was a legitimate level of miscommunication. People said one thing one way and it might have been interpreted or heard another. Q. Is it too early for a frank discussion of DeRozan's playoff performances? I mention only playoffs because that is all that matters for this team anymore. Every year in late April, I've sent you an email decrying the refereeing in the postseason. I'd pull my hair in frustration as DeRozan would be lying on his back under the basket, no points, no foul, and our transition defense undermanned. You always respond that I should grow up and accept that this is the NBA and that is the way it is. Well, I accept it now. In the regular season, Silky, my nickname for him because he is so smooth, would regularly shoot double-figure free throws. He just doesn't get the calls in the playoffs. A great player would step back and shoot threes, but his 3PT% is abysmal. And being nailed to the bench during crunch time, clearly the coaches, and Masai, felt he wasn't the answer. In some respects, it reminds me of what AA did to the Jays a few years ago. If you are not contending, you better be building towards it. Muddling along with an underachieving team is not Masai's style. We have 1 year to make an insanely exciting playoff run. Let's hope it's worth it. Elding Welfa, I think there has been frank discussions of playoff performances and, yes, some could have been better. They don't beat Indy or Milwaukee without his big games, too, so don't go off all fully cocked on this, please. And please take into consideration the performance of others. And his playoff free throw attempts per game aren't too far off his regular season ones, either. But yeah, Masai figured he needed to make a change and he did. We'll see how it turns out, and how proud of me are you for not once pointing out DeRozan versus DeRozan. Q, sir, you're DeMar's advisor. He's tweeted, he did the ESPN interview. What do you tell him to do now? Paul M.A., take the summer and do what you always do. Hang with your kids, work on improving your game, be a good father and family man, catch your breath, do your camp in Victoria, and we'll see you in September. Oh yeah, and when you come back to close up shop in Mississauga, call me and we'll have dinner. Q, hi Doug. As a recent convert to basketball, much credit to my 24-year-old son-in-law to be with the patience to explain the nuances of the game to a slow-on-the-uptake 60-year-old. This trade of DeRozan reminds me a lot of the Leafs shipping out the beloved Wendell Clark for a player who was better. I know things are different here, impending free agency, etc., but maybe the reaction to the trade shows just how much the Raptors have become part of our city. Interesting times at MLSE, eh? Two of the best players in two major sport actually coming to Toronto. Assuming Leonard does come. Maybe the Jays should ask about the availability of Bryce Harper. Thanks for all the great writing and insight, and may your health continually improve. Regards. Alana, being a slow-on-the-uptake 60-year-old myself, I could probably stand a conversation with a patient 24-year-old, too. But you're right on the place the Raptors are holding. I did an awful lot of Toronto and Canadian media over the last week or 10 days and it was always basketball dominated. I don't think I said the words John Tavares once and no one seemed all that miffed about it. Q, hi Doug. Leaving aside the question of basketball skills, how do DeRozan and Leonard compare on the character and leadership factors? Do you think that these factored into the Raptors' decision? Ron F.A., not having spent any time at all around Leonard or with him, I go only on the conversations I have had with others and my few interactions. They strike me as two very dissimilar men. DeRozan seems more outgoing and conversational. As for leadership, I've always thought that was an overrated and nebulous concept, and not being privy to their interactions with teammates behind closed doors, I won't speak to it yet. But, no, the decision was made on improving the on-court aspect of the team, pure and simple. Q, Doug. With the Raptors losing Jakob Poeltl in the trade with San Antonio, wouldn't it make sense for them to bring back Lucas Nogueira as a backup center? David Cooper Montona, I don't know that it's out of the realm of all possibility, and I also don't think there will be a bidding war for Lucas's skills. That said, upper management decided even before this trade to let him seek other employment, and I don't imagine that's changed regardless of a roster spot opening up. That said, I like Lucas as a guy and would be glad to see him again. As a player, he never could be counted on, and that's a huge issue. Q. Doug, so good to see you back. I missed your blog, but your DeMar story and the Giants of Africa store were excellent. That said, no, I love DeRozan, and even though the deal has high ceiling, I think it's way riskier than trying to add a piece to what was one of the best cores in the league. Wasn't there a deal out there to get an aging vet with killer playoff experience, sort of thinking Paul Pierce and how he was just a reps killer? Or is that just wishful thinking? Isn't conventional wisdom that you need 3 all-star types or a LeBron to make it to the finals? Devia, I don't know that an aging vet would have been the answer, to tell you the truth. Unless a guy coming in was demonstrably better than the 10 guys who won 59 games last season, I don't know that it would have helped. Leonard, if he's healthy, and that's always the codicil, is immediately the team's best defender and most accomplished player and one of the top 2 players in the entire conference. That's a game changer. A vet makes them different and maybe not better. Q. Hi Doug. A lot of talk after the Kawhi trade about players not interested in playing in Toronto due to customs, immigration, not much you can do about that, and higher taxes deterring players from playing here. Just wondering if there's any discussion from the league or the Players Association about finding a way to create tax parity among the different teams. So instead of negotiating a gross amount before taxes, a player would negotiate an after-tax amount and the team would pay the amount including taxes. If a player were traded to a team with higher or lower taxes, the team would adjust the gross salary so that the net amount wouldn't change. Only the net amount would apply for team cap calculations. I'm curious to know if this kind of arrangement had ever been considered. It would seem to make things a little easier for higher tax team markets to compete for free agent talent. Greg, Toronto, with so many different tax codes in cities and states and provinces and countries, I cannot see how anything like that would be anywhere near workable. And toss in the spending, saving, tax dodge habits of individual players, I can't imagine they'd go for it, either. But one of the great things Glenn Grunwald did in his time as the Raptors GM was develop a tax informational package for agents explaining how they could mitigate financial factors. I presume the document still exists and, yeah, taxes are higher in Ontario than they are in some states, but, for instance, living X amount of days per year in Canada and spending a salary paid in American dollars might make some pain a bit easier to take.